Again, my name is John. I am from Boston Children's Hospital, the ALS Augmentative Communication Program there. I'll tell you that we are a dedicated program to ALS augmentative communication assessment and intervention, full-time program 5 days a week. We've existed, I've been at Boston Children's for 35 years, and our ALS AugCom program formally was established almost 5 years ago now. During that time, and we've got, by the way, 4 clinicians, 3 speech-language pathologists, 1 occupational therapist who focuses exclusively on looking at alternative access to all things related to technology and communication, 5 days a week. And during that time now, we have seen, since the inception of the program, close to 750 people with MND, and then, of course, providing follow-up to all those folks as well. So what I want to talk about, and sorry for the very long title, I tried to get as much in there as possible for what I'm going to be doing. So I believe now, as I talk about voice, and by the way, our program is a real soup to nuts program where we meet people as early as possible in the disease. And in fact, more than half of the people that we have seen are folks who come to us sometimes within days and certainly within weeks of diagnosis. Today I'm going to speak just about voice and voice preservation. I've had the opportunity before to discuss message banking and that concept, and I'm going to touch upon that but not go into deep discussion today. I've been able to talk about our models for early low-tech strategies and not going to touch on those at all and only going to talk about voice. So the goal that we have is to support people with MND to use one effort to preserve authentic messages through the message banking process and then create custom synthetic voice. Both may then be integrated into one's communication tool for functional use, and you'll see some videos demonstrating that. So, preaching to the choir a bit here, but why is preservation of voice important? I believe that our voice is our acoustical fingerprint. It is the very thing that defines who we are and what our thought, what our emotion is behind what we're saying. All of us have had the experience where you answer the phone, and without even seeing someone, you hear someone say, "It's me," and immediately comes to you a plethora of emotions or thoughts or memories based upon that. There's also research that demonstrates now that when one hears authentic voice, that there is a different impact in the brain, that serotonin levels change based upon hearing authentic voice versus hearing synthetic voice or hearing text from that same loved one. And so that authentic voice is really critical. So I want to talk briefly about what the message banking process is. And you'll see here that it's trademarked. The term is trademarked, and I want to explain that. We've trademarked the term because very early on, when I had introduced the concept, the term message banking, it thankfully was used by many, many people. And some folks decided to turn it into something that was kind of a for-profit strategy. And our goal has always been to make sure that this is something everybody has access to, and also that people recognize that it is a process. It is a not come in, sit down, let's spend a couple of hours, record a bunch of messages, or buy this device and record it into the device. It is a process where, as you can see here, and forgive me for reading, it's a proactive clinical approach for people with ALS. The message banking process supports people to authentically and proactively digitally record and store words, phrases, sentences, and personally meaningful sounds and or stories over time using their own natural voice with natural inflection and intonation. If and when, and that's a big when, if and when someone needs, the message bank protocol allows for those recorded messages to be incorporated into the most appropriate technology to enhance communication and preservation of self. And that if and when is also really related to a good feature match and meeting a person where they are and identifying what they need at that moment and not sort of getting a technology ahead of time. Voice banking. What is it? Well, historically, and I'll explain why I've underlined historical, voice banking is a process of recording a large inventory of one's speech following a predetermined script, and that large inventory typically or historically was anywhere from 1,600 messages to upwards of 3,000 messages. The completed collection of recordings is then used to create a synthetic voice. And those recordings are selected really to represent co-articulation of sounds in the language rather than messages that you would actually authentically want to say. In fact, people who have gone through the voice banking process realize or could attest to the fact that you would probably never say any of the messages you recorded in real life. Double dipping then. So when we began the whole message banking process and had people say, should I message bank or voice bank? Well, I would never tell people to do one or the other. What I was really certain of, though, is that if someone was going to do both, that they should not have to put all of that effort in, that there should be an opportunity to double dip. So early on, I'd reached out to many of the major players in the voice banking world and said, hey, I've got people who've recorded thousands of messages, authentic banked messages. Can you take those and use those to create a voice? And up front, or initially, they all said no, 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 no. And I went to all of them. And then one, a cappella, had said to me, okay, send them to me. And they actually later admitted that they said that because they wanted to shut me up, because I kept asking. And then about 2 weeks later, they said, these are really good. We can do something with this. And they have now launched the double dipping method with my own voice through a cappella. And I kind of made up the term double dipping, and they're using that now as well. But I should highlight, I sent all those recordings to Sarah Proc, to Model Talker, to a cappella, and all of them want to do this. And right now, a cappella is the one that has said, yeah, we can do it. So as you can see, it's really trying to preserve energy and minimize fatigue by using the same efforts once to get as much out of it as possible. So this is a montage. My name is John. This is my a cappella voice. So that's synthetic. This is my a cappella voice. And that's obviously me.
Do you know how much I love you?
Now let's listen to that was synthetic. .wav file.
Do you know how much I love you?
And that was a recording through message
How
banking.
long will you be gone?
Synthetic. Now let's hear the original message.
How long will you be gone?
Can you pause the video briefly?
Don't make me laugh.
Hi, my name is John. Oh, it started over again instead. Hi, my name is John. Can you move it ahead? Sorry. I have no control. This is my a cappella voice. So if you, go down there and then click right about, right there, where you've got the cursor is good.
Will you be gone?
And then, thank you. So the reason I wanted it paused is I wanted to highlight, I think as you hear this and others, you will understand or you'll agree that the voice sounds very much like the authentic biological voice. What's missing is what we call the suprasegmentals, the emotion, the intonation, and that's coming, but we're not there yet. And I only highlight that because I am a firm believer that whenever possible, we need to double dip. If one voice banks and has a voice that sounds a lot like you, fabulous, but I want to make sure that someone has that authentic representation of self whenever possible. And I think that can be done through the message banking process right now. Would you continue, please? is John. Oh. Hi, my name is John. Do I get these minutes back?
Where have you been gone? Don't make me laugh. Don't make me laugh.
Do actual comparisons side by sides.
Can I have a glass of water?
And now the synthetic.
Can I have a glass of water?
Okay, here's another one. Now these were all based upon message banking.
Get there.
Right.
Call us when you get there.
Really flat.
Don't be afraid to ask me questions. Don't be afraid to ask me questions.
So this man just got his voice, and he wanted to recite his favorite literature and then create it in synthetic.
Cold day in April, and a filthy wind blew through the doors of Victory Gardens.
Can I have some mayonnaise on my sandwich?
A lot of people are told, no, your voice is too gone. Don't do it. Listen.
Can I have some mayonnaise on my sandwich?
A vision of
So that was synthetic.
path toward a cure.
And then after this.
A vision of a path toward the cure.
Would you go ahead, please, to the next slide? And you've heard him again, so I'm going to move on. So I want to highlight again, don't tell someone that they're too far gone. If you'd play this, please. So this man is pretty dysarthric, but if the video can play.
Can I have some mayonnaise on my sandwich?
And of course, I'm trying to do real comparisons, but of course, with the new voice, you could create any message. And the reason I'm typing it out is I want people to authentically see it's
Can I have
being generated.
some mayonnaise on my sandwich? Would you be willing to try to go on a vacation?
So when we have people bank messages, one of the things that's been a real challenge for people,
Would you be willing to try to go on a vacation?
for clinicians, has been the manual labor. So some years back, we created a free site called mymessagebanking.com, where one can take all those WAV files that you've recorded, upload them, run them through, and it will automatically transcribe the text. Then those files can be downloaded as a zip file, can be incorporated into a speech-generating device, and I'm really glad to be able to tell you now that since we've developed this site, most of the major manufacturers of communication software have changed their software so that it will allow this auto download and population of all the pages with the banked messages and the text. So Tobii Dynavox has done that. The Grid 3 software has it. Predictable, which is on iOS and Windows, has it. The Prenke Roma company will be rolling out all of their technology in January to accommodate this as well. So it's really nice. It hopefully gets rid of a lot of the labor. I wanted to show you here that we just about 2 months ago now launched this in multiple languages, and to give you a sense of the first Italian rollout.
Message.
Ciao, mi chiamo Marco.
And then I typed it in over here, and this is the voice created through double dipping.
Ciao, mi chiamo Marco.
And so we will be doing that in multiple languages and hopefully building off from there. I want you to see now, what's important is all this can be integrated into an SGD. So someone has both.
This is a voice created by a woman I work with who has ALS.
I am in Boston.
And I'm going to go to her messages. I'm going to go to health. Go to.
I have ALS. I am in Boston. I have ALS.
Just go back.
This is using predictable. And of course, these can be done with any access method, but I, for efficiency, was recording myself.
Thank you for all you do.
So that was synthetic, created through double dipping,
You make my life so much better than it would be.
and that was obviously authentic. So that there's time, I will.
It isn't.
Oops. So that there is time, I will stop there. But really, the point that I hope comes across is that people should be given every opportunity to create a voice. That what we want to do, obviously, is to preserve or to reduce the demand that's going to cause fatigue and provide as many opportunities for people to be able to double dip. And the more we can have, and there will be more things coming along, free resources that will take away as much of the labor as possible, and as much as we get continued participation from the industry to make their hardware and software work easily with that, I think the better for everyone we're trying to support. Any questions?
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I should say that should people want to have a whole lot more information about this, and I was told that I could do this, so doing a 2-day workshop in Sydney in March on this entire process, and there are a bunch of flyers that are out there, correct? That are out on a table. So on kind of the entire proactive approach to OGCOM and folks with MND, including hands-on through all the steps of voice preservation.
Great. Thank you, John. Any
Thank you.
questions? Yes.
Sorry, I know this is an ALS conference, but have you tried it in progressive non-fluent aphasia?
So, no, simply because I work in a pediatric institution, and typically that has not been something that's. This whole process actually grew out of my work in the pediatric intensive care unit 30 years ago. So I've done a lot with children, and most recently now have started to do this in a rather aggressive manner with people who are having total laryngectomy, total glossectomy.
Thank you.
I guess as a speech pathologist, and you're talking about voice banking and being proactive, and for some people it is a big if. And for example, model talker is a massive time investment.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how much time are you saving, do you think, by doing the sort of double dipping that you're talking about?
So, and there are two things I want to comment on there first, because yes, asking people to be proactive is important, and I think that the messaging on how you get that point across is first one of the biggest issues, and helping people understand that the goal is to give them options and to make sure that they are in as much control as possible. And frankly, the opening statement we say to everyone who comes to our clinic is, believe it or not, my goal is to waste your time. My goal is to engage you in lots of strategies and show you things that you may never need. And most often, that's when people say, okay, waste my time. I do think that for people who are following our message banking model and are just casually recording messages at will over an extended periods of time, that because they often wind up having a corpus of 1,000, 1,500 messages, it makes perfect sense then that we just take those and use those instead. And so in that instance, it saves a lot of time instead of, as someone was saying to me earlier today, they set up in a closet literally in a closet where they close the door with a headset and a computer to record those nonsense sentences.
Oh, yeah. One more.
So is that sort of the minimum that you'd need for the double dipping, about 1,000 or so?
So the double dipping, I believe, and if you were to speak with a cappella, they would say, oh, we only need 400. And I tell them, please stop saying that. Because I think that while they can do it with 400, I personally think the quality is not as good as it is with 500 or 700. So we've definitely been doing that. We've even had people who've done Model Talker, for example, and since currently Model Talker is not able to do that double dip, and Model Talker has very generously given people their entire file of all their recordings, we've then taken those, meshed them with all of their banked messages and submitted those to a cappella, so we actually have a larger corpus.
Okay, I think we're about there. Thank you very much, John.
Thank you.